fear doesn't change values. It changes what people tolerate. Better someone cruel than nobody in command. But here's the problem, almost nobody admits. Chaos doesn't create monsters, it creates applause. Because when someone willing to be brutal in the name of order emerges, many people don't just accept it, they applaud. After all, if it works, what's the problem? Keep that idea in mind. It's older and more current than it seems. Centuries ago, a ruler took this logic to its absolute limit. He didn't promise to be good, he promised to be effective, and he delivered. He transformed fear into politics, cruelty into method, and for a while, it worked. His name became associated with monsters and legends, but the truth is far more uncomfortable, because what he understood didn't stay in the past, it just changed its discourse. We're talking about Vlad III of Wallachia. You probably know him as Vlad Dracula, or the Impaler. Yes, the same one who inspired literature's most famous vampire. But forget the sharp teeth and fear of garlic. The truth about this man is far more interesting and infinitely darker than any Gothic fiction. Because Vlad didn't suck blood. He simply understood something many leaders throughout history have understood. Terror is an extraordinarily effective political tool, and he used it with surgical precision. By the end, you'll realize this didn't stay in the past. Vlad's logic still pulses in modern discourse, in current policies, in internet comments. It just changed clothes. 15th century, Eastern Europe, Wallachia, a small principality trapped between two giant empires, the Ottoman Empire to the south and the Kingdom of Hungary to the north. Imagine living in such a place. Every day you wake up not knowing if you'll be invaded by the Turks or the Hungarians. Your neighbours disappeared yesterday. Bandits control the roads. Local nobles betray whoever pays more. The state? Non-existent. It's absolute chaos. And in this scenario, Vlad emerges, son of Vlad II Dracula, member of the Order of the Dragon, a society of Christian knights. Young Vlad had a childhood that seemed like a script for psychological trauma. At 11 years old, he was handed over as a hostage to the Ottomans by his own father, a guarantee of political loyalty. He spent years at the Turkish court, learning military tactics, observing how the world's most powerful empire maintained control. And here's the detail almost nobody mentions. He learned very well. While there, he saw his father assassinated by local nobles. He saw his older brother buried alive, and he understood one thing. Hesitation kills. Mercy is a luxury. If you want to survive, you need to be the most terrible. At 25, Vlad returns to Wallachia and assumes the throne, and he wastes no time. Want to know what he did in his first months of government? He invited all the nobles of the region, the same families that betrayed his father, that sold out the country, that profited from chaos, to an Easter banquet. Everyone accepted. Food, wine, celebration. In the middle of the feast, Vlad locks the doors and impaled everyone, literally, hundreds of nobles, men, women, entire families. Stakes piercing through bodies, erected around the castle. The message was simple. The era of impunity is over. And the people applauded. Because here's the problem nobody likes to admit. Vlad wasn't a solitary monster. He was popular. The lower classes adored him. Peasants, merchants, common people all saw him as a hero. Why? Because he did what he promised. He ended the nobles' corruption. He stabilized the roads. He punished thieves with such extreme brutality that they say you could leave a bag of gold in the middle of the square and nobody would touch it. Because everyone knew. Stealing in Vlad's Wallachia meant slow, public, exemplary death. He believed in something very specific. Order above all, implacable justice. It didn't matter who you were, noble, beggar, foreigner. If you broke the law, you'd pay. And you'd pay dearly. There was no negotiation, no second chance. Vlad didn't govern by charisma. He governed by absolute fear. And this, strangely, generated a collective sense of security. People said, finally, someone who acts. Sound familiar? But Vlad had a problem every ruler obsessed with total control faces. Where to stop? Because at first the brutality had logic. It was targeted. Corrupt nobles deserved it. Thieves deserved it. Ottoman invaders deserved it. But gradually the line began to move. A woman was impaled because her husband complained that his shirt was poorly sewn. Vlad decided she was negligent. Beggars were invited to a banquet, locked in a hall and burned alive, and because, according to him, they didn't contribute to society. Foreign merchants who didn't follow Wallachia's commercial rules exactly, impaled. The tool became the method became the identity. Vlad could no longer govern without terror, because terror was all he knew how to do. And here's the part you need to remember. When you build a government based entirely on fear, you can't stop. Because the moment fear diminishes, you lose control. So you need to escalate. Always. More executions, more brutality, more public spectacle of horror. And the people, they kept supporting for a while. If you like using history to understand the present, subscribe. Here we don't idolize characters, we question ideas. Because what matters isn't Vlad, it's the pattern. And this pattern didn't die in the 15th century. Now let's talk about the part that immortalized Vlad. Impalement. It wasn't just an execution, it was political theatre. A wooden stake inserted through the base of the body, positioned so the person would take hours, sometimes days, to die. Vlad would have stakes erected around cities, forming forests of the impaled, thousands of them. When foreign ambassadors came to negotiate, they were received by crossing these fields. Imagine the scene, the smell, the sound. The message was clear. Don't mess with me. And it worked. In 1462, when Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II, the same one who conquered Constantinople, invaded Wallachia with a massive army, he encountered something that made him retreat. 20,000 impaled, bodies along kilometres, soldiers, civilians, prisoners of war. Mehmed, a man who conquered empires, looked at that and thought, "This guy is too crazy even for me." And he turned back. Vlad won through calculated insanity, not through traditional military strategy, simply by being too terrifying. But here's the problem he didn't see. Terror keeps enemies away, but doesn't build allies. Terror generates order, but doesn't generate loyalty. And when you govern alone, based solely on fear, one moment of weakness is all it takes for everything to collapse. In 1476, Vlad was betrayed. Not by the Ottomans, not by the Hungarians, by Wallachia's own nobles, those he hadn't killed in the first round, those who survived, who waited, who feigned loyalty. They got tired, and when he went out for yet another battle, without his complete army, without the political support he never cultivated, he was ambushed, beheaded, his head sent to the Sultan as a gift. End of story. Or is it? Because the curious thing is what happened afterward. In the following centuries, Vlad was transformed into a national hero in Romania. Not despite the cruelty, because of it. Because he defended the country. Because he didn't bow to the Ottomans. All the brutality was recontextualized as necessary strength, and today there are statues of him, monuments, tourism, he's celebrated, and this brings us to the inevitable parallel with today's world. How many times have you heard someone say, the country needs a strong leader, someone who isn't afraid to act, who does what needs to be done? Have you noticed how, in times of crisis, people become willing to give up almost everything, freedom, nuance, even compassion, in exchange for promises of order? Vlad's logic isn't medieval, it's timeless. It appears in contemporary political discourse, in defences of zero tolerance, in campaigns that promise to clean up the city, in online comments demanding increasingly extreme punishments. A good criminal is a dead criminal. We need to end this nonsense. Human rights for righteous humans. The problem isn't desiring security. The problem is believing that systematic brutality is the only path. And more, believing you'll always be on the right side of the stake. Because here's what Vlad never realised, and what many of his modern admirers also don't realise. When you normalise cruelty as state policy, you don't control who will be the next target. Today it's the corrupt, tomorrow the negligent, then the inconvenient, and eventually someone decides you're in the wrong category. Fear is a tool, but it's not a foundation. You can build a kingdom on top of it, but never a civilization, because civilizations require something Vlad despised, trust, and trust isn't won with stakes. Vlad died alone, betrayed, without real allies. His government lasted a few intense years and left a trail of collective trauma. He believed he was saving his people, and in a certain sense, he did, temporarily. He stabilized the chaos, but at the cost of creating a culture of terror that poisoned society for generations. And the great irony? He became legend, not for what he built, but for the fear he generated. Bram Stoker transformed his name into a synonym for vampire, a creature that sucks the life from others to survive. Hard to imagine a more precise metaphor. So in the end, what do we learn from Vlad? That the crowd will always applaud whoever promises to end chaos, that brutality can generate short-term results, that fear works until it doesn't anymore, and that the greatest danger isn't the tyrant himself. It's the moment when society decides that cruelty is acceptable as long as it's directed at the right people. Vlad believed he was above consequences, until the day he wasn't anymore, and the stake he used so much became a symbol of everything he represented: violence as solution, power as an end, humanity as weakness. You can look at him and think, what barbarism? Or you can look around and realize how many times, in the name of order, security, the common good, we still repeat the same logic, just with more polite words. The Impaler died centuries ago, but the idea he represents, that was never buried. It just waited for the next crisis, and the next frightened crowd.